Welcome to the Mixed Media Tapes. I'm Philip J. Mellon. The Mixed Media Tapes is a short artist talk series based on word and phrase prompts. I have invited visual artists to select prompts from a list and to share their thoughts and stories based on those prompts. In this recording, Marc Cheetham talks about what goes into titling his paintings.
I'm Marc Cheetham from Pequannock, New Jersey in the United States.
So, Marc, you wanted to talk about titles, and I noticed through looking at your website that you have some that have sort of names or phrase titles, and then others that are listed as numbers. And
the idea behind that is, for many years I was very much for titles, but I could not figure out how to title my work, so I decided to start numbering the work in the order that I finished. So each painting had first painting finished in the year was number 1, year, and I figured put the year because it makes it easier. Painting 15 is 15 year. And then at some point I decided, you know what, screw it, I'm going to start putting titles on my work because I'd rather have that. It's a little less cold, I think, than having numbers. So the next thought was, how do I title work? And I kind of want to help bring you in via the title, but at the same time I really don't, and I don't want the title to actually overly reflect the work itself. I'd rather it be kind of disjointed, but at the same time it connects with the idea of the painting too, because I go through a list of titles that I may think up or take from other places, and some work with a painting, some don't, and so there is some kind of connection, even though I'd rather have a disconnect between the title and the painting itself. So the paintings that have titles tend to be the newer paintings because I'm now getting the hang of how I want to title stuff, which is generally taking either phrases that I see or song titles or quotes from songs, and that seem fitting somewhat. And that's generally how I choose titles. Like I said, they don't really have much meaning. To me, they don't really have much meaning. There's some that actually do in relation to the composition that's there and the title, but that's more the exception, I guess you would say, because most it's just look at the painting and, oh, that seems like a good title for it, and then now it's a way to differentiate each painting rather than 1.14 and 2.14, which seems, like I said, a little colder and sterile to me. Though not every work I have has titles, and it's generally works that I intend to possibly go out or are going out into the world that I actually do title. The ones that are not, I generally just leave them at the numbers, and then if they go out in the future, then they will hopefully get a title.
Yeah, I like that. I think today on your website I think there was one that was called Black Kites, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think they're fun, and it's interesting that, and I'm glad you're going to be titling them in the future, or as you plan to. Because the few that I saw, they were kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like that painting in particular, I was having a lot of trouble with to begin with, and then when I finally resolved it and finished it and was somewhat happy with it, in titling it, I was running through a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm like, oh no, this is going to be too obvious because it's like 3 black triangles, and I'm like, whatever reason I came to Black Kites, I'm like, is this going to be too it's just like I said, an obvious thing. Like there's 3 black triangles at the top. They're obviously like kite-like features, but I'm like, that's not why I'm calling it that. And why am I calling it black when there's black there? But it just seemed like a fitting title to the painting, and it can. And that's one of those instances where like I said, like it can more so lead into it, other than in obviously in difference to like another painting I have that I titled The Bitter Buffalo, which I don't think has anything to do, doesn't draw you in the same kind of fashion based off of the composition and coloring and everything. It's just a phrase from a song that I actually liked and got a kick out of.
Yeah, what's Teeth Like God's Shoe Shine? Is that from Modest Mouse?
Yes, that is. Yeah, I've always been curious if someone would actually pick up on that. And The Bitter Buffalo is from a Modest Mouse song too, from
okay.
The name of the song. It's the song right after that on the Lonesome Crowded West.
It's this is all kind of weirdly connecting for me. I didn't get that right at first. So I knew it stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Teeth like God's shoe shine, but I didn't know why that sounded relatively familiar. Like it just so much. It was so foggy that I was like, nah, that can't be it.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, that's 100% it. And that's another painting that I think is a little bit more literal to a certain degree. Like, it has those three white shapes that are kind of pointy so they can be read somewhat teeth-like, and the title just seemed very fitting towards it too. And I think at that point I had been listening to that album probably for like 3 weeks straight, on my way to and from work.
For me personally, the idea of the titles being names or phrases, they I think they add a dimension to like your imagery, like and I would consider them physical, like your paintings without having imagery, because of the way they're assembled.
Yes.
But with titles, I think it adds to it for me, because then it becomes an image as well. Like, if that makes any sense, like two-dimensional versus like sort of the three-dimensional like application of material.
And that's something I think that I've somewhat thought of, and that's why I wanted to be the way I am with the titles. Instead of pulling a title, which I sometimes do, like a more basic title, like I have a painting that I titled Addendum, which that was also fitting to it because it's a work that was a pain in the ass, and I sat with it for, I think, 3 or 4 months, and then eventually one day I changed one little thing, so I'm like, oh, addendum change, why not title it that? Like, I don't think that reads I think it works well, the title, but I don't think it reads the same way of adding an extra layer of imagery, like kind of what I think, if I understand correctly, what you're getting at, like with a title like Teeth Like God's Shoe Shine, or Black Heights, or what have you.
I can't. I don't feel like I think I did an okay job with trying to say what I mean, but I still think there's something there that maybe I'm not expressing it quite like I mean it. Like it. I mean, I've never considered you an illustrator. I've never considered you. Not that I'm trying to put you in a box or you work in a box or anything. But,
oh yeah.
They were just so like there was, I don't know if it's a narrative that I'm trying to get at, like where with seeing your work without titles, I'm not the best at looking at titles, but without the titles, they seem very like I said, like physical and like collage oriented and like highly process oriented, and you're not trying to illustrate anything. It's in a sense like in the best way that could mean. But with like I said, with some of the titles that are phrases or names, they animate the imagery a little bit, and like I said, it becomes imagery versus like almost like closer to sculpture.
Okay, I know what I have a better idea what you mean. Yeah, I think I'm not that far off from what I was understanding, but I was slightly off. I think you hit it spot on pretty much. That's what I'm going for. Like, I don't want the works to illustrate anything, and I want them to be completely non-objective, just about what they are. It's like the way the shapes work, the way they work, the texture, etc. But then you have I do very much like the idea of that playfulness that comes out by pulling out some random titles that are kind of disjointed, but at the same time they do connect in a certain fashion, that they do add that bit of imagery. And then getting into the further part of what you're talking about, adding a third dimension to it, and the play on the work itself, essentially, I think. I'm Marc Cheetham, and you're listening to the Mixed Media Tapes.
I'm your host, Philip J. Mellon. I'll be releasing the individual talks here over the coming weeks, so please stay tuned, and thanks for listening.